Today I'm going to talk about my invention, about my future institution that I'm going to build related to the spiritual world. Basically, the idea is to define what is the spiritual forces, elemental forces that people have inside of them through the spiritual world. And with that idea, what I do is I help people, for example, if they have an elemental force of fire or electricity or earth, that would be like defined by volcanoes or other kind of forces related to earthy forces de la tierra, and other kind of elemental forces. I help them manipulate those forces in a way that people will be able to control any negative forces from the spiritual world, which will impact significantly their life, because of course the spiritual world, we're all the sons and daughters of God, so it will impact the 3D world significantly, in the sense that the behaviors of other people will be strongly impacted. For example, let's take the example of the fire, and we can talk about the water force after that, and an air force, for example, elemental force. So for the fire one, we can say, for example, we can imagine that we're into a room and we want to clean it. When you get into a place and you don't feel good about this place, you just have a feeling that this place is like has a lot of negative energy. Well, this is what I do. I basically help people to clean that up. Okay, so what you would do, you would imagine that if your elemental force, which needs to be discovered through clairvoyance, by the way, your elemental force is basically to set the fire, the room on fire, and this way it will, if you imagine that, but in a positive way, for example, with the fire of God, to clean all the room, and also like project fire through other people to clean yourself and other people, basically, and the communication between yourself and other people, you'll probably feel a release in your solar plexus. And that release is basically confirming that the impact of the spiritual world is real into the 3D world, and it's really like doing something right now. So you probably feel something. If you do, you're probably from the fuego elemental force, the water, you can imagine the same thing, but with different concepts. For example, imagine that you're Triton or something like that, and you can, like Moise, separate waters, or put the flavor to the water of love, for example, and it just splash over the people that you're seeing. And any kind of adjustment on the flavor of the water, for example, or the perfume that you add to the water, whatever you want to call it, would impact strongly people's behavior, because they would feel that energy of love all of a sudden coming through them, And even though it's done through your imagination, for example, you're imagining the person you're talking to it's getting splashed by a huge wave of love, of flavored love water or something like that, or any other kind of flavor, like can be love with integrity and respect, and then what would happen is that the person will feel it subconsciously, because you really have done it, so you really have that elemental force of water. That's what it means too. It's like a confirmation in that sense. But the best way to do it, I think, would be through a diagnostic, in the sense that I have this vision. I can define really